to do that.
Okay, being 5 o'clock, agenda review and disposition?
I have nothing to add. Do I have negotiations under non-public?
No, just personnel.
So negotiations.
All right,
Only thing I need to add.
great.
So you
Privilege of the floor, welcome everyone. Anybody have anything yet? Hey, Amy. Elementary chair. Great, okay. Approval of the minutes, November 18th. Does anyone see any corrections or changes?
No, I'll make a motion to approve.
Thanks, Bonnie. Seconded by Paul. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, Grace, great. Just for an absence. Okay, and student report.
I'm going to wrap it into mine just because I know we have a lot to get through with the budget.
Okay.
So I did talk to Addie. She'll join us in January. I mean, it's a busy time of year. Need I say more? So, we haven't seen each other since just before Thanksgiving. So, we're in those 3.5 weeks between holidays, which brings, the holiday concert was a real hit last Tuesday night at the Silver Center. It was actually quite crowded. And as always, Will does an amazing job with the band, the chorus, the jazz. It was very well received by the community. We are also in the middle of Spirit Week, so the faculty and the students are participating in some Spirit Weeks. Janice is highlighting Hat Day today for us. Importantly enough, though, Hat Day, the proceeds, it was pay $1, pay $2, and the proceeds went to Voices Against Violence. So there's a real purpose in some of the things that the Spirit Week brings. We're going to wrap it up with the unified basketball game on Friday against the staff. And that has turned into quite like a holiday time tradition here. So I know the students and the faculty, those that are playing, are looking forward to that. So if you're around on Friday, it's always a good time. Yesterday we had a real win with our culinary. They went to the Pro Start competition that we often talk to you about, and they won the entree portion of that competition. So congratulations to Chef Rollins and Eric Sargent, who's the para in there. That's a huge win for them, so well done. Over the weekend, we managed to host a robotics and esports tournament. I don't know if you were in the neighborhood. I know Paul was here doing some in and out with the wrestling team, but we hosted over 45 schools here. So it was a busy day. The setup began Friday night after the basketball game ended. Bev Tedeschi, Ryan Frazier lead that charge, along with some volunteers. I know Jim Gleich always comes and helps with the emceeing. So the esports team for Plymouth Regional High School placed third. So that's a great win for those guys. And Bev Tedeschi, she puts a lot of time and energy into that. And so I just wanted to say thank you. That's a lot of coordination amongst those schools. Winter sports are off and running. We have everybody up and running now. Nordic skiing was the last, and the ski jumpers are actually doing a little bit of dry land and some outdoor work because we have so much snow for this time of year. So everyone's off and running, which is exciting. This week we have our 4th delayed opening. Again, those times are built into the calendar for teacher time. We've been working through our NEASC growth plan, working on that curriculum alignment, and thank you to the MOA because hopefully tonight we will be nominating 6 department heads, and some of that leadership role around curriculum, assessment, teaching and learning will shift back to department heads here at Plymouth. So we're excited. We have 6 people that were interested, so we'll talk about that when we get to nominations. The other thing this week, we welcome our 8th grade counselors on Wednesday afternoon, tomorrow I guess already. They like to come over this time of the year and hear about the new 9th grade program of studies. So Kyle and I and our school counselors have been updating that. And we are making some required changes, as we've talked about with those Ed 306 minimum standards. Those new minimum standards are going to influence our incoming ninth graders. Everybody 10, 11, 12 are grandfathered out. And so when we get to finalizing some of that work, I will come to you if there are any graduation changes to our graduation plan, and any new courses that will be developed as a result of that conversation. So we're just sort of priming that wheel, and then we'll get that work to you in the new year. And that's all I have.
Did you have an approval you wanted us to push through?
I'm going to do the nominations
In non-public.
in non-public.
You didn't have any, no, not for this meeting.
No.
Okay, got it, great. And then our committee meetings, not sure we'll have those with the busyness of all the meetings we have.
Yeah, we'll see
coming
where
up.
we're at after our January 6th meeting,
Okay.
what we'll have to do.
And just, Kylie, want to remind people about the January 6th? just
Yeah,
because
so
it's
at the
new
bottom
business.
of your agenda, it just reminds you that we have our regularly scheduled meeting on the 6th, which is Tuesday, and then we have, which is at 5, and then we could actually move, we usually move that to 6, and then just go down for the budget hearing at 6:30. So it's the budget hearing on the 6th as well. So 6 o'clock. You want to do that, 6 o'clock,
Sure, and I
school
can
board meeting?
remind, I'll remind everyone as we get day of and such.
So 6 o'clock up here, and then we'll go downstairs for 6:30, and it will be an abbreviated agenda,
Great,
okay?
sounds good. Okay, and discussion items, so budget,
So, just take that.
budget review.
So had a lot in between. So tonight you have to make a decision on the budget, because our next meeting is the budget hearing. So the last meeting, we went through draft 1. We had the major issues, obviously, were the increase in health insurance and out-of-district placement were up $1 million. So with everything else included, and we went over the reductions and the increases, it was a 5% increase. So the board had asked us to, what would it look like if we were to, whittle it down to see what that looks like and how that impacts programming as well. So first I'm gonna have Dan go over the revenue, because I think that we have talked about the appropriation side staying at 3%, but I think with the revenue, it's a much broader story, which balances off the spending and then receiving as well. So I just think that's a piece of it that has to go into the decision-making, especially with some of the money that we'll be receiving for special ed, so that increase going up, we will receive funds back. The Squaney tuition agreement, where we receive close to $500,000, Dan will be more specific than I am. And some other reimbursements that kind of offset that spending as well. So just so you're aware, the health insurance alone is 2% increase. So if you took away that health insurance, it would be around 3%. So as we go through the cuts in the revenue, I ask that you take the big picture into mind and then make a decision as where we go from there. So Dan, can you just talk about the revenue a little bit?
Sure.
And the health insurance piece, which is separate than the
Yeah,
revenue.
okay. So start with the revenue, which is the last page of your packet, your budget
Of your
packet.
budget.
And what you'll see is that revenue is fairly constant, with a couple of exceptions, one significant. The largest, of course, is the unreserved fund balance. And that was substantial to the current year. So this is last year's unspent funds become a revenue in the current year. That's the first number on the top left of all the numbers, $501,000. That's money that was left over from last year that becomes a revenue in this one, which creates, as we talked about in the spring when we were talking about how the year end would shape up, we talked about the swing effect that would have. It would it would depress this year's tax rate. And when I say depress, I just mean it would lower it because it's a revenue from previous years, and therefore make the increase for next year with the projected budget larger than if you had spent the full budget last year. Does that make sense? So that's clearly one of the things that's impacting the change in not appropriation, but in projected assessment. So you have that $500,000. You have tuition from the Pasquaney District, as Kyle alluded to. Now we have tuition over $500,000, so that you'll see about midway down the page, tuition, regular and special ed, that number's increased from $450,000 to $525,000. And then we also have a reimbursement of services for one of your employees who provides special ed services. Will also be providing some services to other schools in the SAU, and those schools will reimburse this district for that person's time. And that's that new $54,000 line you see. Otherwise, we've kept the grants and food service funds flat. And so what that doesn't speak to, which we can get into in an hour later, is the whole special education aid equation. One of the lines near the very top of your revenue sheet says special education aid, and this is a formula-based reimbursement that always comes a year in arrears. As Kyla mentioned, one of the single largest influence in the increase in the appropriation this year is a new student that is a very costly out-of-district placement. The state will reimburse a majority of those expenses, but a year in arrears. So meaning, and I could go through a mechanical example of that if it would be helpful. Just pass out this piece of paper real quick, walk you through it. Nice. Sure. Yep. Should have done this in advance. Sure. Yep. Yep. So I want to be clear that this is, for the confidentiality of the student, this is obviously doesn't have any information, personal information on it. But these are the real numbers for a specific student that'll be in 9th grade here next year. This is their numbers for this year. So based on last year's expenses, the district that student attends will receive $341,000 this year for last year's expenses. So next year, there's $600,000 in the budget. That's the single largest item that Kyla was referring to. And the following year, this district would receive somewhere between $400,000 and $500,000, depending on the state budget and how it plays out. So I think we can't have that revenue on the year we're budgeting for, because the payment comes a year in arrears, but the expense is in the appropriation side. And I think that becomes a sort of a philosophical question for you folks. I know you have the 3% goal, but do you, if it's a one-year absorption of the expense, knowing that you're going to get the revenue the following year, remind you when the student finishes here. So for example, next year, when that student is no longer in the district they're in now, they'll get the reimbursement for this year. So next year they'll get the $400,000 payment, but they won't have any expense. But mind you, they went through the conversation you're going through right now about this. They went through that the first year that student came into the system in the at the K through 8 level, right? So it becomes a part of your conversation. How much do you want to impact the overall budget, or how much do you want it to impact the overall budget, or how much do you want it to force your hand with goals you may have for a one-year situation that'll get recouped once they're gone? Do you want to impact programs based on this one-time event? And that's your decision to make. But I wanted you to have those are the real numbers for this year. For last year's expense, that's why it says 24, 25 in the top left, and the revenue this year, and the same thing will happen next year. This year's expenses will be revenue next year, even though the student's gone from that district. So that's the single biggest impact, that $600,000. That's 3 of your 5% growth. With the exception of that and the health insurance change, the budget is relatively flat.
Yeah.
So the next piece, should I go talk about the health insurance piece?
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely,
Oh.
sure.
Does the law still provide the opportunity to borrow in anticipation of payment?
Yep.
So, an option, I don't know if I would support it, an option, would we have that option of borrowing this amount of money and then when we get the reimbursement, that next year,
Yeah.
paying it back?
Sure, but that doesn't save you, that costs you more money because you're gonna have interest expense.
I didn't, the state charges interest on that?
You don't borrow from the state, you borrow from a bank. And then you pay the bank interest. So the first year the student, the first year this happened.
Right,
Borrowing was done
right,
from a bank, Northway, which is now Camden.
right,
The interest was paid.
okay.
The law says the state should reimburse you the interest. We applied, the state said, no, we're not paying. Just give you I can provide you the letter from the commission,
No,
the former
no.
commissioner,
That-
saying,
Well, that's the twist.
yeah. So there's interest expense, so it's actually costing more to do it that way. And
Okay.
I would recommend not doing it
Yeah, okay.
if you know in advance. That district didn't know in advance that it was happening. So the second piece, I just want to talk through a little bit of detail for you, is about health insurance. And I'm trying not to ground you guys with numbers if I don't show up that often. There's been a lot of talk, especially with, you may have seen in the news, there's been talk about, there are 3 health insurance risk pools in the state of New Hampshire. Well, there were 3 10 months ago. One of them went out of business in the spring. And the second one, which is called School Care, was underwater financially on their June 30th fiscal year end close, and they issued what are called assessments. They asked all their member districts in September.
Can we give some of those to them? Those particular, I think those are very interesting, and some of them might find it interesting. Thank you, Dan.
Sorry, that works. Thank you. So the second health insurance risk pool in the state, which is called School Care, they issued assessments when they realized that they were underwater for June 30th at the end of the summer. They issued assessments to their member districts of $30 million for additional premium from last year. Dover School District, 1.9 million. Londonderry School District, 2.1 million. Just, we want this for last year, even though it's above the premiums we told you. So I'm going to point, this is Health Trust, who is the risk pool that all the school districts in SAU 48 participate, as do some of our towns. And I really want to just focus your attention on 4 fiscal years in particular. Start with the 2 that have orange bars and the 2 after that. And what we're talking about is the 4 years since the COVID pandemic. The green line is how much money they have at the end of the year. And the gray line is what the capital reserve should be. And what you can see is that in FY20 and FY21, they collected much more premium because people didn't go to the doctor. The first year or 2 of the pandemic, no one went to the doctor. So they had all the money coming in. And the orange line is the money that was returned to their member groups. So specifically, this school district got back in 2020, $77,000. And in 2021, sorry, make sure I give you the right number, $151,000. So that was $225,000 that came back to the district from those 2 years. The next 2 years, FY22 and 23, people started going to the doctor again, much more than they typically would. And the diagnoses were worse because of the 2 years delay in diagnosis for things like cancer. So the reserves were significantly depleted, which is why you see the dark green lines are way below the gray lines in FY22 and 23. And so Health Trust engaged in a rebuild, a 5-year plan to rebuild its reserves, rather than issuing the assessments like School Care did. That's caused a lot of problems for some districts. Almost half of the increase you're seeing this year, and this is why I'm bringing this to your attention, almost half of the increase you're receiving is for that capital rebuild, right? So your increase is about 12, 13%. 5.3% of that, almost half, is for the capital rebuild, which, to a certain extent, in my opinion, balances off with the money, not entirely, but a portion, right? Your increase is $400,000, but you got $225,000 back, and we're able to use that as return to surplus during FY20 and FY21. So I just want you to be thoughtful of the whole equation about how that piece of it works in contemplating what you do with the increases, the two big increases that are in your budget, other than that special ed placement and the health insurance rebuild. Your budget is basically flat from the current year.
Less than flat too, because we're down an administrator.
We did reduce an administrator in the last budget, yeah. So we
Okay.
already did cut, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so when I say flat, I mean, yeah, there are some natural increases. So for example, your support staff is in the middle of a contract.
Teachers.
So teachers are new. The support staff, the teachers are being bargained. So
Correct.
they're projected at the current year's rate, because that'll be a separate warrant article. But your support staff already has a CBA in place. So their increases are known, as are the health insurance costs for example, the source point. Those are known. So reductions were made to offset those required increases. Your transportation contract is up significantly, and that's a multi-year contract that was entered into a year ago. So reductions have been made to offset the known required increases. So that's why I say, other than that special ed placement and the health insurance increase, the budget was kept flat, virtually.
So, I'm gonna move on.
Yeah. Anyone have any questions for Dan? You can take
Not
it,
yet.
not yet. Hang tight.
Okay.
I was gonna leave, I can't leave.
So, you directed us to look at, on the appropriation side, to look at what would it look like if we were to cut even further on the appropriation side, so not the part Dan was talking about. And if you're going to cut to get to the 3%, you're looking at positions. Anything else is really nickeling and diming supplies and general technology, and you'll see that on there. So this, I'm referring to the sheet in your packet. We don't want to lose a teacher, but I think if we looked at, what's required and not required, and the shift in some of the minimum standards, we would look at reducing, if we were to have a say of priority, obviously first choice would be none, but the first part would be science. We would have to shift the graduation requirements, as well as shift some other pieces. We would be able to follow all the requirements for the state. And did you want to add on that piece?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of, that's a good summary. We could offer everything we need to offer. It would just increase class sizes by doing it with one less person. And it would put some of our science electives at risk. For example, power and energy that kids take to fulfill some of their science current requirements. AP Chem, science investigations. I'm like CSI, oceanography. Yeah. Some of the electives that we offer, we would be likely running less of those to make sure kids get all the requirements.
Mm-hmm. So if you reduced by that, so basically you would shift to just provide what is absolutely required, that's it, with the new shifts in the minimum standards. Number two is if you went 2 teachers deep, would be both a technology teacher that doesn't necessarily teach computers. That teacher teaches what, Kyle?
Robotics, 3D modeling, and programming.
Programs. So again, not
Elective.
required, they're electives. How would that impact?
Yeah, I mean, what we're worried about is a few years ago you had some philosophical discussions about how to reduce kids in study halls. And so as you cut staff, you run the risk of putting more kids back in study halls. Because our class sizes can only take so much. You know, there's a required number in science labs. There's a, you know what I mean? There's a,
And it would
there's
be
a guideline.
less elective, so
Less
somebody
electives.
that would want to take programming might have to take dance, which might not line up to their interest level. So you talk about the positives and negatives
Yep.
to how it would affect the overall. And then number 3, and it still only gets it down to 3.79 with 2, that's salary and benefits in those 2 lines. And then lastly, we just kind of went through and kind of cut a little bit from everywhere, and just said we could just do without it at this point. So that last part is just, we're just gonna not get what we usually get for supplies, for robotics, for general technology, periodicals. That's supposed to be the floor machine, and then the mower. So taking out any new equipment we just took out. So at the bottom, you'll see if you know, increase minus number 1 and 3 would get you to 3.98, and then the increase minus number 2 and 3 would get you to 3.4. So those are the options we came up with as far as something for you to deliberate.
Yes.
That's not taking into account this revenue that we would be getting the following year.
Correct, this is just on, you asked, so typically your goal was around appropriations is 3%, which is why I had Dan kind of review the bigger story on revenue. It's just, at this point, if you're cutting that much, it's people, it's teachers. So I think it's a discussion that you need to have. Yep, Phil?
At the
Sorry.
last meeting, I had asked if we could get class size enrollments. Do we have those?
Those are in your
Yeah, in your
fact
fact
books
book.
right there. There are, and then the technology teachers, there are some smaller enrollments in that class, which
Right.
is another factor in deciding
Okay,
that.
where are they? Can you tell me? So I
Yep.
don't have to thumb through every page.
Well, there's an index in the front.
And related to that, I guess, is the question, what are the enrollments in your elective science classes?
Pages 13 through 16.
13? Thank you.
13 through 16.
Thank you.
So if you want to look on page 14, specifically in science.
Yeah.
It's at the bottom.
Anatomy and physiology has 18 in it right now. Environmental science, 15. AP physics would be considered an elective, 21. CSI, 19. Oceanography, 23. And I think the middle column is how many sections I'm running. So let's just take oceanography as an example. I'm running 2 sections of that, so you're actually talking about 46 kids, eliminating that.
Anatomy and physiology is an early college credit too, so kids get
Right.
both college credit and high school credit.
First aid and safety is also an elective that we've added over the years, so I'm running 4 sections of that with 23 kids in it. Those would all be the risks.
4 sections with?
23.
Per section? Yeah.
So the number to the left of that is the total number of students that are in those courses.
Right. Oh, yeah, sorry, I was reading that right to left. There you go. So you can just look at that middle column.
So the science wasn't based on numbers, it's based on requirements,
Yeah.
but they'll have to be dispersed into other classes.
So reducing, if I may, Lisa, I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry,
Yeah,
Phil, I was just,
by reducing that, you're gonna have some pretty high class sizes then.
And I might make a shift in graduation requirements then,
Yeah.
because I have more flexibility in what the new minimum standards are saying in science than I do in social studies.
Right.
how come you guys didn't do technology teacher and number 3, that combination?
It is.
Or am I missing it?
It is.
Okay.
So number 2 means it's both of them.
No, number 2 has science teacher in it. I'm saying just technology and just number 3. That combination isn't here.
Well, I think because If there was one, it would preferably be science, and if it was a second teacher, then it would be technology.
And based on these numbers,
Correct.
one is, okay. Okay. Yep.
So Lisa, what you're saying, asking is just the technology teacher plus all of number 3.
Yeah, that combination.
Yeah.
Did
And that doesn't lower it enough, that's what you're saying.
No, I was just saying, so we said science teacher as the top priority. If you went 2 teachers, it would be technology and science teacher. I'm not recommending just the technology teacher in the general
Okay.
class. Like that, it's in an
Okay.
order
Yeah.
based on programming.
Yes.
Did you consider a different subject that has less enrollment than science?
We did consider other subjects, but looked at we just started some programs too,
Yeah.
so I don't want to say those numbers reflect the popularity of it, given the newness of it. You know, media production and outdoor ed. Is that the other?
And dance and theater, you know,
Yeah.
we just kind of got these
And they're gaining
programs.
momentum, so there just hasn't been a chance to see it flourish at this point.
And what about something that's near and dear to my heart, world languages? What's the requirements around that to graduate? I'm just thinking about long-term in terms of what these students need.
We do have requirements for that. We did reduce by one position when we had someone resign a few years ago, so we already have reduced that by one.
in the last 2 years.
So,
It's not a current state graduation requirement.
and then you already combine sometimes French 4 and AP.
Right.
Already you combine those. So I think that would be a pretty deep cut to the program if you got rid of that. And right now you offer 2 languages.
The other worry I would have is that we're offering language in quite a few of our sending buildings. And so then you leave a population of kids from almost every town with no place to go. So that would be a worry for me.
Yes, Paul?
So even if we do cut, say, number 2 and number 3, we still meet the graduation requirements for the state, correct?
Yeah.
Yes, we would have to shift some of our Plymouth requirements because we exceed the state.
But did we meet the state
We
standard?
meet the state standards. So right now, the state requires 20 credits, we have
24.
24.
And for our honors path, we have 26. 24.
Yeah.
But they have to take certain high-level courses.
Yeah.
I have a question for Dan. I'm not really sure if it's gonna make sense. But, well, I think what you said is, we have this expense for special ed, and we get paid a year later, right? So the taxes would, if we were to keep everything the way it is, the taxes would be up because of that, and health insurance, right? And the following year, in 26, 27, we would have that money from 25, 26. How does that offset that budget going forward? So is it just 1 year that we're behind in a lapse?
Correct. So
And
what-
then how does that affect the budget going forward?
So let's say,
from-
if we were to fast forward a year, all of us, everyone in this room is sitting here a year from today. And we're having the same conversation, and everything in the budget's the same. Everything.
Yeah,
If you look on your revenue sheet, the second line down under revenue from state sources, the top line under that section says special education aid, $75,000.
yeah.
I'm gonna say it would save $575,000.
And so would that then, for 26, 27, reduce the tax rate?
It would reduce,
So we're
it would
really-
reduce the assessment, yes.
So am I understanding that we would really be up, are we at 5%, close to 5% for 1 year, and then it would go back down for at least 3 years?
Yes.
Because of,
It would go down for the number of years the student is enrolled in this school plus 1. Because the year after they leave,
right?
you're gonna get the revenue from their last year here.
I mean, true and not true, we could have improvements, we could have capital expenses. You know, there's that piece too to think about. There's a couple projects coming down the,
Yeah, there's no projects in the budget right now, so part of your warrant article is replenishing your capital projects and building those up again.
Did I answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
That also assumes we don't get another student just like that in after.
That assumes that as well, and then the open enrollment piece that may be impacting us sooner than later, so.
I
There's
know
a
we
lot of
can't-
variables that are up in the air.
And I know we can't talk about, like, the science department and particular positions, but can you give us more information about how you think the science department will do moving forward minus one position, other than class sizes? Just a shift in who does what?
In a limited
Yeah.
amount of courses.
Yeah, because science is, the science certification is also unique, because it's life science and physical science, so we would not offer some of our electives. We would offer what's required, more of what's required, and then wherever the numbers came in, we would fill teachers' schedules with as much as we could. But right now, the kids have a lot of choice in science because we have some flexibility.
Okay, yep, Bonnie.
So, offering just the required courses, you would have to also offer more sections of all that to keep the
Correct.
class sizes down.
Right.
And how does that impact, does that have an
Yeah,
impact
it
on the
just-
schedule?
Yeah, so if you take away, then, they have to teach what's required. You just teach less of the electives, so less of oceanography, not a required class. Anatomy and physiology.
So those electives would then become the section
Correct.
for teaching a regular science course.
Or not, yes, or then not offered.
Okay.
They would just get pushed.
Yes, sorry.
You mentioned something about increased sizes in study halls.
Mhm.
If we have to cut like that, well, like what kind of numbers are you talking?
Well, I mean, I haven't done that math, but right now we're keeping study halls around 25. I might be running 2 at the same time, right? So we might be running 3.5 study halls. You're talking about 85 kids sitting back in study halls. And mostly what I worry about is the young kids, because when kids come in the door as 9th graders, we often try to have them have a well-balanced schedule. So they're not just in the rigor. You know, they want to come to school because they want to go to oceanography, or they want to go to robotics, or they want to, you know what I mean? Like, so that's a very different 9th grade schedule if it's just the requirements than you've had in a little bit, certainly since I'm here.
Phil?
If we reduce by the one science teacher, for example, oceanography, I'm assuming that there are obviously some seniors that would be taking it, but is there a preponderance of underclassmen? Because I notice you have, if I'm understanding this, you have 2 sections. So if a kid can't get into that class because of class size, they could take that as an elective
Right.
the next year. So it isn't as though they would never get an opportunity to
Right.
take that class. It would just be delayed a year if for whatever reason that really fits in to their academic growth plan.
Right. Yeah, that's fair.
Are you also suggesting like taking that science position out and putting it back in next year? Is that the delay you're talking about, or just the fact that they
No,
could-
the fact that, that'd be fine, I have no problem with that, but what I'm saying is that if they can't take it next year, numbers may be less, so that they could take it that following year, which is not uncommon, and I guess that would be for any of the elective classes. I look at astronomy. I'm assuming that's an elective.
So are you?
No,
because
so
there's now-
astronomy, that's the piece
So
that
that's
we're
what I'm
looking
looking
at.
at. It's a currently at Plymouth Regional High School, it's a graduation requirement.
But it's not required by the state.
So that's where I would,
We are
Okay,
planning
yeah,
on shifting
well,
that.
I guess that would lend me to believe it could fall into the category of an elective. But I understand, because it's a requirement for the school, I understand that.
Right.
Not for the state.
Correct.
Because they speak to your biological sciences,
Correct.
your physical sciences.
Correct.
And so on, okay.
So
which is
Phil,
why I looked at science.
Can I ask a question? Are you asking about someone being able to take it the following year if we cut the science teacher this year?
No, I'm just trying to get an
Or
understanding.
you just mean in general?
Yeah, I'm trying to get an understanding.
With the current staffing?
I'm concerned with the overall
Okay.
impact, and remember, we still have warrant articles
Right.
that we're gonna have to deal with, which will add to that assessment and appropriation,
Right.
obviously.
Okay.
So that's all I'm trying to do, but from my experience, that is how we had to deal with the issue of electives. Well, we just can't offer every class, every kid, every year.
Right.
If we were someplace else, maybe we could, but we just can't, and is it ideal? Absolutely not. But I think some hard decisions have got to be made, so that's what I'm trying to get an understanding.
Yeah, I think you're just suggesting that there'd still be an opportunity in the child's career to take one of the electives, just not in the path that it's currently is
Exactly,
today.
exactly.
Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
This is just my opinion, but I think we've worked very hard to have our graduation requirements and the programs we have above the state level. And I'd really hate to see us kind of go backwards, and after we've worked to create these programs, because of a one-year kind of, trough, I guess. It just seems like it would be a lot more, kind of try to, I don't know. I mean, I'm happy to say bye to the mower and the floor machine and whatever, and I know that doesn't get us down a whole lot, but I don't know, I mean, teaching is what we do, so I just hate to lose teachers. That's just.
What
that's
about,
just
yeah, thanks, that's a good point. What about a .5 science? A half science?
It's really hard to hire because you don't get benefits.
Yeah.
It's not an enticing, it doesn't pay into the retirement, it's just not a good
It's
person.
a
I
low
don't think it's
applicant pool
yeah, it's
anyways,
it's a
yeah.
good- And there's no buy-in then from them.
Yeah. That's it. Thoughts from anyone else or any more comments?
Well, I'm wondering, can I say something?
Yes. So the public can't speak now, but when it's time, I certainly, I've got people flagging me over there. We can't stop now, we have to stick with the schedule, but yes, we will come to you.
What's my question? What does the percentage look like with that, the money, reimbursed money in there? Like say for, or are you able to project that now? Like say for 26, 27? Or is it too far out?
So, that would, are you asking, I'm not sure I'll be able to provide you an exact answer, but I just want to see if I can get you close.
Yeah.
Are you asking me if hypothetically the reimbursement for the special ed expenses came in the same year the expenses were incurred?
No, I guess I'm just wondering, like, between this year, where we are right now, which I think we're at 5 or 4, I'm just under 5.
5.03, exactly.
So for when we get that reimbursement from the state,
Yeah.
what would our, I guess you can't really figure it out, can you? Because it's so many other
Yeah,
variables
I guess
involved.
I just want to try and, if I understand the question better, I may be able to, but I think what so if you think about the fact that 3%, 60% of that 5%, right? So 3 of the 5 percentage points are this expense. And you're gonna get somewhere approximately 80% of it back. Really, 2.5% of that 3% is gonna come back. So really, your increase now would be at 2.5% under the 3, if that money were received in a more timely fashion. So if that money were received in a more timely fashion, and we could put the revenue as a projection, you'd already be under the 3%. Your appropriation would still be above 5%, because it's a revenue. You're still spending, the appropriation is the expense authority, the authority to spend. So your appropriation is still gonna be where it is, but the impact would be less, because the revenue would be there.
Mary Beth
Is
and Paul.
this, under CTE, the outdoor rec leadership 1 and 2, is that a full-time position?
He teaches personal financial literacy he pairs personal financial literacy course.
Which is a new requirement.
With outdoor leadership?
Because it's only in the afternoon.
So if I were to voice my concerns, I would much rather propose eliminating that than eliminating science. If I'm thinking about how are we going to position our students for the best colleges and the best careers at a time when they need adult leadership, science, I think, has to be really taught in such a deliberate way. And my gut says outdoor recreational leadership could be learned in college, could be learned through park and recs, could be learned through extracurriculars. That's my own bias.
But is that tied to grant reimbursement?
Well,
Do you want to speak to that, Kyle?
Yeah, so we receive a Perkins grant, a federal grant, it's based off of Frater to Spanish, et cetera, but I don't believe it has to do with the number of programs we have.
So that wouldn't get us to where we need to be, right?
If you cut that program
Yeah.
short.
It's not,
I mean, it would cut, it would be like one position. So I don't have that figure, but that's a pretty new position, a new program that's been approved.
This is his 3rd year.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to recommend cutting anything, right? But if I'm looking at what keeps this school competitive, what attracts people to moving to Plymouth and putting their children here at the school, I think about sciences and math and what's going to get their children into the best university or vocational program.
Do you want to speak to that? Just
yeah, I mean, what we've tried not to do is cut the reason that we went with science is we can still offer the competitiveness
Okay.
of what we need kids to know and be able to do upon leaving here, I guess. I guess my rebuttal, because I think it's a good way to converse, is that oceanography likely isn't, we could live without, right? So outdoor rec for us also put Plymouth on the map because we were one of the first high schools in the state to offer that industry recognized credential. So while I don't disagree with what your point is, I do think that because of where we sit in the world, it was welcomed by the community at large.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, understood.
Yeah.
And I don't disagree.
Yeah,
You know,
right. I had to
appreciate
think
that.
about how to do,
And it was Paul next, and then there'll be Phil.
So if I'm understanding, most of the science programs are electives that we cut, but the main courses are still gonna be.
Correct. Yeah, and I guess I'll just
You'll still be able
point.
to keep the class sizes
Yeah.
at 24?
Yes, we can still do what's minimally and what's competitively required. So we would still offer AP Bio. We probably wouldn't add AP Chem, which was the new consideration I asked about. We would just stay with what we already know
And how about
and can
eliminating
do.
the freshman requirement?
And I would look to change the freshman requirement of astronomy since we are Conversely, the only state.
The
in-
only school
The
that
only school in the
has
state
that
offering
requirement.
that. We would move that to an elective. Right now, we're running a lot of astronomy because it's a graduation requirement here. So I would have some flexibility with changing that, moving that to an elective.
We could
So
always-
although both cuts
Could always
have a.
reconsider it again next year, couldn't we?
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
So when we looked at this, we looked at overall student impact too. So we did look at all of those class sizes, impact, rigor, and this is although it impacts a lot, this is the least amount of impact that we can recommend.
Even though, like, as your point is, it's a core content area.
Right.
Phil?
I greatly respect what Mary Beth had to say about having our kids be competitive going on to higher ed. But if I look, and again, because you suggested or focused on science, if we look at our honors, AP level classes in science, we certainly are going to have our kids be competitive, trying to get into some of the better
Yeah.
institutions.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm leaning towards that reduction of science because I'm viewing that, I know you're saying it's required by our standards, but we built that.
We can
did-
shift it, is what
Right.
Janet's saying. We can shift that
Right,
requirement.
we did that, you know, and who knows what next year's budget will be when we don't have that $600,000, when we don't have other warrant articles. I mean, one of my fears is how would we handle if the worst case scenario in my mind developed where the communities forced us to cut. I use Jaffrey Rings as an example. They had to cut $3 million this last year, which is huge. We're not there, but I don't know when we run that risk. I don't know.
And if you look at the default numbers, they're not too far away from it. There's not a huge discrepancy between the two. So
Yeah.
that's on the last page, if you look at the last page of your budget. So the default on their budget is on the right side. That was added in. So if you look, not at the revenue page, but the grand total page on page 27, you can see the proposed budget. And then, you know, there is a difference, but it's not.
And to just for those of you, just maybe new people, the audience, so if the budget doesn't pass, that's the budget we get handed to us, which is down $500,000-ish, I think, right?
246.
Yeah.
Okay, 246, okay, even less. And that's been, in years past, big discrepancy. I don't know how we're gonna run the school, but no, it's, yeah, that's a good point, Kyla. It's pretty close. Because what Phil's saying is that faith and trust in the community, and you're hearing all these nightmare stories from Littleton to Merrimack Valley.
Well, this is the common conversation happening at every
Right.
school
Yeah.
district right now.
Right.
It's not, we're stuck with a lot of laws that have come, that you're paying for now in your local budget, that we have no control over.
Well, even just you mentioned the special eds, we now have an addition, I think we all know, we have an additional year that we have financial responsibility that we didn't have 2 years ago.
Right.
Because now the age went from 21 to 22.
You have open enrollment, you have charter school requirements, all of this other stuff that aren't about the kids in this building. So,
And it might get worse.
yeah, I don't know what's gonna happen down at Concord.
Yeah.
We can't predict that.
It's not. Yes, Bonnie?
Dan, do you have I know you do those charts where they show each town's increase on per thousand. Do you have those, or no, this one?
I believe those were.
So in your
I
packets.
thought I'd seen something, but.
You do have those. You have both the current, you have this year's actuals, so not proposed budget. So they look like
At
this.
the very top, it's gonna say,
And you
actual
have,
assessment 25, 26.
so that's, yep. And then you have next year's budget, 26, 27. So you have by town what that looks like.
And that's just to point out, like Phil says, that's one out of the 4 articles. You still have 3 others.
Yeah, this is just the budget.
2 of the other 3 are not much, are not raising money, they're just.
Yeah.
Well, that's Plymouth. Is that just when you say 2 of the other 3?
No, I mean, so, we'll get to the warrant when we get to it, but.
Oh,
but
okay, gotcha.
The other 3 articles, you've got if there's an
Yeah.
agreement with the Teachers
Okay.
Association, and then you have 2 proposed articles, or recommended articles that you,
For the, yeah.
to, if there is fund balance, to start refurbishing or recapitalizing the 2 capital reserve
Right.
funds that exist,
Right.
that haven't had money in them in a number of years. But again, that's only if there's money left over at the end of this year. That's not to raise additional money.
Anyone have any questions for Dan on that?
So it looks like last year we actually had, about half the towns had a decrease in the tax rate, our impact on the tax rate.
Yes. 4 of 7.
Where do you see that one, Vern?
At the very bottom.
Bottom right.
And am I right in saying where it says tax rate increase on the bottom, where we're looking at those 4 that went down? That's per 1,000?
So the second column from the end is per 1,000.
Yeah,
Like, I'll use the example because it's alphabetical, like Ashland's tax rate relative to the high school went down 22 cents per 1,000,
okay,
which was 7.17%.
okay.
Lot to take in.
So you do need to make a decision tonight. Because our next meeting is the hearing. So you have to decide to stick with what we proposed in the first one, or to go with any of these recommendations, or to do anything else you'd like. That's our.
Phil, you look like you want to do something.
Well.
What are you thinking?
Are you looking for a motion? Is that where we're at?
Something, yeah,
I
something.
think a motion also, you know, where are people leaning? I don't know. Yeah, which would help with the motion.
That may further initiate the push the discussion. I would move that we consider cuts as suggested, not recommended, of 1 and 3.
Which would bring it down to 3.98,
Right,
yeah.
under the 4%.
So that would be the science teacher, and then the general cut from new equipment and supplies and stuff like that.
Right.
All right, so we'll need a second, and then we can have discussion on that. So does someone,
I'll second.
Paul wants to second that, okay. So discussion, questions, any thoughts?
Well, I'm still trying to figure out how else we can do it without, cutting a position. I'm thinking.
I think as Janet said, you can't get to the level we would hope to get to by cutting paper and pencils. And unfortunately,
I do like your point, which I don't think was your point, but I took a different view on it, is that we could bring it back. With the revenue increase next year, we could pull it
Right.
back in.
right.
I mean, these are the hard decisions you have to make to. Bonnie?
What's the process to bring it back?
Just put it in the budget.
Just like hiring or. all that
Hiring is
stuff?
tough, you know, you don't know who the, you know, it just is a low pool given the specialized certification of science teacher. And that's not just here, everywhere, yeah.
Peter, did you want to?
Yeah, I guess, what are we asking the administration to do? Are we saying we're gonna, let's say this motion passes. How does it materialize? Are you laying a teacher off?
Yes, you'll have to go through the RIF process.
So then if we bring it back, what does that look like when the money's back in the budget? Do we go back to that same teacher who's moved on?
Well, there is language in the contract that says there's a first right of refusal.
Right.
They can come back
Right.
within a
I just
certain
want
amount of
everybody to be super clear that if we say yes, that that's what happens.
Can I ask another question?
Yes.
I'm just gonna talk about a sacred cow, sports. Have we looked at, is there a sport that we could cut where we don't have to lay off a teacher? Or that there's equipment that is paid for by families instead of by the school? Are there other options than laying off a teacher?
So we have we have many sports where parents pay already. So I mean, we did look at that, there's,
Yeah, I mean, yeah. We didn't do that math because nothing sticks out as, no one sport other than football is that different from each other. So it would be a little bit like drawing straws, like based on what, you know, and I don't, you know, and I wouldn't consider football because I think that's important to our community. So when you, then you look at, you know, recently we've added hockey. So I think it's important to recognize that we don't, that doesn't have a cost associated because we entered into a co-op that's already existing. So some of those new things that you see that can be influenced certainly by the media are not additional costs to the district as of right now. It's not in that operating budget.
Okay.
Yes,
I
Bonnie.
just wanted to say, sports doesn't have health insurance
Right.
and the salaries associated with it.
no, it'd be similar to general supplies.
It'd be, yeah, it would move the needle as much.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you, Bonnie.
yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor.
Dan, I think I have a question about health insurance. This 2% of the budget that's listed on this sheet, health insurance progressively gets more expensive. Is that planned to go down next year, or is that planned to go up next
So,
year? Because we're gonna be in the same position next year if that goes up any further. Am I correct in reading that?
So if you look at, I'm not sure it's in this fact book or not,
It is,
the 20, is it the 20 year or the 14 year
yes.
that we have in the fact book?
It's on page. 43 and 44.
43 and 44, thank you. So what you'll see, well, the percentages aren't there unfortunately.
32 has some too.
Yeah, thank you. So, page 44 gives you a clear example. No, that's the tax rate, sorry. I guess the point I'm getting at, because I looked at it on an SAU-wide basis, which is relative, because we're all in the same group. Over a 20-year history, we average about 6.6% per year increase. Increase, 6.6%, which is just below the New Hampshire. The New Hampshire norm is about 7.5. So we typically run a little better than New Hampshire. We have a slightly healthier population. And I think that the substantially larger than typical increase that was pushed out this year, I'm going to use the number 13.8% for the most populated plan. As I said, 5.3 of those 13.8 is capital rebuild. You'll still have some capital rebuild with the 5-year rebuild plan that Health Trust has implemented. But I don't think you're going to see, and I'm saying off the crystal ball, but I don't think you're going to see the same kind of increase next year as you saw this year. As I say, the 20-year average is about 6%, 6.5%. So the 14%, 13.8 that you see this year, I think is an anomaly. I'm not saying it can't happen. There are communities that are facing much larger increases, right? The costs of healthcare, just like you've seen with labor and supplies or your grocery bill at home, the contracts that Anthem has negotiated with their providers have gone extraordinary. The cost of pharmaceuticals is what's blown up is these, you see commercials, if anyone who watches TV, you see a commercial every night for something called a biologic, something like Humira, or it's Maldi, or what, you know, the eczema stuff, or the psoriasis stuff. These are pharmaceuticals that cost crazy amounts of money, and just like the risk pool is trying to control those costs. They were under fire last year for eliminating Wegovy unless there's for weight loss, unless there's a secondary indication. So there's an attempt to control costs, but I honestly don't think we're rated as an individual group based on our employees' experience.
I'm just wondering if we cut a program or we cut a teacher, because partially 2% of the budget is
The increase in
health insurance. If this increases again, we're going to be cutting maybe more programs and more teachers next year. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
That theoretically that could happen the same as it could go down.
It could
So
happen.
I'm just thinking slippery slope here.
Yeah.
Could go either way, that's all. That was my part there. Gotta throw that out there.
I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there is a solid answer.
Yeah, I mean, you'll have that revenue next year from that one student, which hopefully will help. Because now we're fronting the money with other revenue.
And hopefully you don't have the open enrollment problem, right, pretty far, you know?
That's true too.
That's the big unknown. Really big unknown.
All right, so any more questions, or is the group ready to vote?
No, nobody's ready.
Nobody's ready to vote.
Well,
Nobody wants to vote.
Well, the motion has been made and seconded.
Yeah.
There's no further discussion.
So, yeah, no further discussion. All right, so all those in favor?
Would you repeat the motion, please?
Yeah, let's repeat. That's a good idea. Yeah, so Phil, go ahead.
That we, as the information we've been presented, we will move to reduce the budget by what's listed as option 1 and 3, which is the one science teacher and then the other hodgepodge of areas.
Seconded by Paul. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All right, so, and nays. All right, we get 2.
okay.
Yep.
I will-
motion passes.
Any other?
So, if I may, so to be clear, that's the, unless you take other action, that's the move, that new number to the budget hearing,
Correct.
right? So at the end of the hearing is when you would finalize a number to move to the first deliberative session, just for the newer members, to talk a little bit about process, right?
Could you say that again?
Sure.
Thank you.
So whatever number comes out, you finish on tonight, whether it's the number you've just decided on or a different number, that number will get moved to the budget hearing, which is after your meeting on Tuesday the 6th. At the end of that hearing, you'll need a quorum at that meeting as well, because at the end of that hearing, you would make a final determination of what number goes to the first deliberative session, which is the first Tuesday in February. And that's the meeting where whatever number you send from the budget hearing to the first deliberative session may be considered, amended, up or down, whatever, by the voters. And whatever number comes out of the first deliberative session is what goes on the ballot for an up or down against the default in secret ballot on the second Tuesday of March.
Okay. I will get that out and up on the website for the hearing. The last part I have is your warrant articles. So another goal of yours was to replenish the special ed reserve which you have in place in your capital reserve. So your warrant articles this year are, the first one is at the bottom of page 1, which is every year, so I can tuition and negotiate contracts, so that's pretty standard. 2 would be your teachers' collective bargaining agreement. We were discussing that in non-public tonight there, so it has not been voted on yet, so I'll add that in if you vote in favor of that, to move on as well. The new articles are Article 3 and 4. So fund balance to special ed capital reserve, I just picked a number to start with. If there's leftover funds of $50,000, that will be dumped into the special ed cap reserve fund. And same with the Article 4, fund balance to building renovation capital reserve, $50,000. And as Dan says, if there's only money for one of those articles, it goes bottom up, so the capital reserve gets funded first, then the special ed cap reserve. Okay? And then the last article, which obviously the numbers will change, is the operating budget. That's it.
Questions, yes, Bill?
Can you just, I didn't understand the comment you made, between 3 and 4 goes bottom up?
Yeah, so say we have $52,000 left, 50,000 goes into one of the reserves, it would go into the capital reserve first, because that's listed second to last, it's just the way the DRA does it, by legislation. So both articles can't be funded based on a lack of what you have for, that gets funded first.
But is it strictly the order and the sequencing
Yes.
of that? Could we reverse the sequencing?
100%.
You could.
That's why I encouraged Tyler to bring it up. So if there's $100,000 in fund balance, they both get funded fully.
Right.
If let's say the two numbers were 50 and they were 75,000, whichever one on the bottom is going to get 50, and the next one up is going to get 25.
Yes, Bill?
Given the discussion we've had around special ed, I would suggest, I'd move that we reverse the order so that special ed capital reserve would get the most money.
I'll second that.
Second by Peter, all those in favor? Opposed, abstentions? Opposed or abstentions? Opposed. Opposed? Okay, 2 opposed.
Okay. We will make those changes and bring those to the hearing. Can everybody attend the hearing? Yes, everybody, you're up in the air. All right.
January 6th.
Any other business in this?
No other, I think that's enough.
Okay. Privilege of the floor.
Yay, I'm so excited. Thank you so much. It was really hard for me to not be like, oh my God, what about this? What about this? First question, is there any retirements that are taking place?
There are retirements.
Okay, are we factoring in not replacing those retirements?
No, one is autos,
Okay.
and I don't know how I don't. That was taken into consideration,
Okay,
Amy.
that's
I'm
fine.
having.
One isn't anticipated for the following, is one for the following.
Yeah, we have someone that put in
Okay.
2 years.
But the other one is automotive.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, and one is special education.
Okay. My second question is the
Thank you.
extra $501,000 that you guys have in your general and reserved fund. Is there a reason you're not taking that money to offset this budget?
Yeah.
Yep.
So Amy, that's last year's fund balance that was, it's a revenue for the current year. because it's last year's fund balance, that $501,000.
So that is already taken into consideration
It was-
off of this
It's
year's?
one of the reasons why this year's tax rates were lower than they would have been otherwise.
Okay,
And that conversation might happen in the spring when we know what we have left over to deal with this as well.
okay. Because that's just another way to offset it, because if you know that you're gonna have that extra revenue next year.
Oh,
when
we
you
know,
have
we
that
do it
money.
all the time, yeah. we know.
So,
And Amy, as we get closer to the spring,
yeah,
and Plymouth Elementary does this as well, you
Yeah.
commit, it's seeing where the budget is, sometimes you commit early some of the unreserved to
Right.
that line.
okay. And by cutting that science teacher and the other things that you guys just did, what does it bring the budget down to?
3.98.
Okay. And that's before all the warrant articles, because the teachers.
The only, yeah, there's one other cost warrant article, teacher's contract.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Good questions.
Thank you. That's all I got.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Anyone else? Yes?
I just have a question. I know I don't have in front of me everything that you guys have in front of you, so forgive me if I'm misunderstanding any piece of this, but it seems to me that with the special ed money that will come in next year, all things being equal, which we don't know that they will be, all things being equal, you would then at that point have the money for this position that you were talking about having to get rid of next year. Is that a correct?
Yes, we just stated
Yeah,
that.
that is
yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
So it seems to me like, I remember somebody asked, like, why can't, is there any way to borrow money, right? And I understand you pay interest, you end up paying more. But we're not talking about you needing to borrow $400,000. We're talking about one position that needs to be saved, knowing that the following year, the money will be there because of this offset of that special ed payment. So it seems a little bit to me like, what's the expression, like cutting off your nose to spite the face? Like, there's a big amount of money that you don't have this year that you will have this next year. And this one position that does not cost $400,000, right? I don't know those exact numbers because I don't have that in front of me. Like, what would it be to take a loan for 1 year, the interest on that for 1 year, to get you through to not have to fire a position, knowing that you're gonna have the money you need the following year? Again, all things being equal, and I know there's no way to predict that. But it just feels to me like this is such a big move to lose all of those seats in science for all of those students, to take astronomy out of the graduation requirements. That's such a big part of the freshman year experience here at at PRHS. I don't know. It's just one thing that came to mind.
Thank you.
That's all. Thank you.
All right, consent items, we passed those around. Board members? Anything? All right, and I just need someone to go into, I make a motion to go into non-public for and state the reason.
I'll make a motion for personnel
And negotiations.
and negotiation.
Okay, Bonnie, Paul, Patty, Peter.
Yes.
Yes. Phil, you're good. Yes. Barbara, good. Thank you.
Okay, I guess it's okay.